Hello friends, the Goat Man from Chronicles of Narnia here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, in which we're going to be taking a look at what hero pro players are picking in the mid lane right now to completely stomp PUBS. And this is a strange one because it's at the end of a relatively stale patch. People have essentially rediscovered this hero, and for the past 2 to 3 weeks, I've been paying attention to the Dota 2 Pro Tracker and looking at this hero's statistics, and the win rate is between 56 and 60%. With the lower sample size, obviously it's going to be on the higher end of the win rate, but the pick rate keeps going up. People have rediscovered this hero, and that hero is Templar Assassin. Every time this hero is on my team, it seems to farm and it seems to stomp. Every time this hero's on the enemy team, it seems like there's nothing that we can really do to stop her from farming and essentially just 1v5ing. So people have figured out that this hero works in the current meta, and I want to get to the bottom of why that actually is. So what better way to figure out what pros are doing to stomp pubs with this hero than to look at an expert stomp a pub with Templar Assassin in 8K MMR. So the expert that we're going to be taking a look at is none other than Blitzbank's Dota. I'm just kidding. It's LGD Maybe. The item and skill build that LGD Maybe did in this game was relatively what you would expect, plus or minus a few things. Starts with the side blades for harassing in lane and for getting range creep blast hits. Maxes out refraction first for the defensive and aggressive potential. Second pointed side blades for a little bit more spill, helps you farm ancients as well, but you don't need any more than that. It does its job. Level 6, Psionic Trap gives you kill potential, allows you to scout, allows you to stack camps. Then you max out the meld for a little bit of kill threat and farming a little bit quicker. And then level 10, 25 attack speed. You get this attack speed talent. It feels like you don't need any more attack speed on TA, and she attacked pretty quickly. Evasion, not that useful because you already have the refraction to give you the defensive capabilities. Level 15, 25 move speed because this hero loves to hunt people down in fights, chase support, so this is great for that. Makes her a lot harder to kite. Level 20, 4 meld armor reduction. This makes you an absolute beast, especially with the 1.5 second meld hit bash late game, 25 talent. However, meld dispels is probably something you would want to consider versus something like a Venomancer, heroes that you really need to dispel certain things with. However, the 4 meld armor reduction on top of Deso, on top of the armor reduction you already have with the bash, you can kill almost anybody with this level 25 talent, which is one of the best level 25 talents in the game. So item-wise, he went for a magic wand because he was against a bristleback. You're probably not going to want to go for this unless you're against a bristle or Zeus. 2 wraith bands into boots, into blightstone, and then finally power treads. Very efficient early game items. You spend a lot of time farming with these items. If you want to keep farming, generally you go for the Deso. If you think you need to fight, you go for the Blink Dagger. But you always want these 2 items. It just depends the order that you go for them in, but you usually go Deso Blink or Blink Deso. After that, maybe went for a Hurricane Pike. This is actually not super common. From what I've seen, people just farm so quickly on TA that you don't need defensive items because you just jump in, burst somebody with ridiculous burst items, and then you jump out, even if it's like a carry or something along those lines. So people do go for like Daedalus, Bloodthorn, Nullifier, things like that. However, there are some games where you need to kite the enemy team so you can build a Hurricane Pike BKB. That's obviously perfectly acceptable, but a lot of people do go for the Daedalus and maybe did go for it after the Dragonlance. So on the very first wave of this lane, maybe essentially wins the lane just by very good decision making. So we can see here that off cooldown he is auto attacking. Now this is not typically something you would do in a lot of lanes. People say, oh, you shouldn't push the lane. You want it to be in front of your tower. Shouldn't you just last it? But maybe is a TA, so he knows that he has this opportunity when the bristle's level 1 and very weak to bully him out of lane with the ridiculous pure damage that comes from the side blade spill. So he is auto-attacking the creeps off cooldown and focusing primarily on just trying to get the angle right so that he can hit the bristleback. And as a result, he misses this last hit, and then he misses another last hit because he didn't tailor the creep wave to be last hittable. He was just trying to harass the bristle. But that is the trade-off. He knows that if he does this now, it's going to result in better things happening later. It's going to result in the bristle being perpetually at the percentage of HP where he can't bully the TA out of lane. So he's trading last hits now for last hits later. So once again, walks up to the wave, pops the refraction because he's now level 2 before the bristleback is, which is another reason that he pushed the first wave, and he just continues to try to get the angle. He's right-clicking, and look at this. There's a range creep deny that he can go get, and he's choosing to not go deny the range creep in order to keep harassing the bristle. He values this bristle being kept at that very small HP percentage so that the bristle cannot lane, then to go over and get that range creep deny, which would give the bristle a little bit more time for the tango to regen his HP, and then the bristle could play the lane a little bit better. So he wants to keep him low. So he keeps going for the harass, even misses a creep over here, a full creep, and is, last hitting decently, but the most important thing here is that he is focusing on the side blade spill. Bristleback loses his salve, and now the lane is completely over. Bristle dies. I think probably our boy here on King Gaming suicided. He's not a bad enough player to mess up to this degree. I think he realized that with the salve popping, that he was going to lose this lane even harder if he was just sitting at 10% HP in the tower. So he suicides, maybe takes the kill, and now this lane is incredibly easy from just a very solid first couple of waves. So after the first couple of waves going so well, obviously the lane was relatively easy. Bristle farmed, TA farmed. Where maybe put the traps at level 6, in my opinion, is pretty important, and where he plays once he gets level 6 is also very important, because I think there's a big difference between a lot of pub TAs and maybe TA. So once he gets the traps, he puts one on this side of the river, one on this side of the river. That's for killing, and for if anybody tries to kill him, he can use the traps. Puts one on the rune just so he can see what it is, one on the ancients in case Bristle is farming that, and then one on this camp in case Bristle is farming that. So you can see that he does not have the traps in particularly defensive areas, other than this one and I guess this one because he can scout the rune. He is aggressive. This is a big difference between maybe and pub TAs, is that he doesn't just push the lane and then go farm his jungle. He pushes the lane and then he goes and farms the Bristle's jungle. So he is taking farm away from the enemy team. He is using the fact that he won this lane in order to gain farm on the enemy side of the map, which leaves farm on his side of the map open for his team. So this is a much more efficient play than to simply just go farm your own side of the map, which is what I think a lot of pub TAs would do. So what I want to do now is speed through the next 5 to 10 minutes and just take a look at exactly where maybe farms until he gets the Deso, because that's kind of all you do on this hero generally, is you just farm until you get the Deso, but where you farm is incredibly important. So we can see here that he does this rotation where he farms his own jungle. He farms these 3 camps over here, not the ancients, and then he uses the traps to scout that Bristle is taking stacks in the triangle, and he enters into the enemy triangle, taking farm away from them, even takes a bit of an ancient stack. So he goes back towards the mid lane, pushes it out because that's his job, farms this camp, walks back towards the mid lane as it's pushing in, farms that camp, which was stacked, gets a double damage, looks to the trap to see if Bristle is farming anywhere, and then because he doesn't know where Bristle is, he has a double damage, and there's a siege wave, he is farming the mid lane and pushing the tower. So this is going to force the enemy team to have to come and rotate to this. He plays towards the top area of the lane because that's where his Shadow Shaman is. He knows people can TP in, which they did. They get the tower anyway, and he goes back to his little triangle here to farm this. Pushes out the mid lane, just repeats this rotation over and over again. Now because there are 2 people mid, 2 cores mid, he can't go and take the enemy farm, so he goes to his triangle, but only goes to his triangle after he knows that he's forced 2 cores towards the mid lane. And even when he has the Desolator, he still looks to just push out the lane, jungle, and make defensive rotations with the Deso. And he's just kind of sieging towers, not really looking to get too aggressive, go for any smoke plays or anything like that. Still jungling, still kind of playing the defensive game, only going for kills when other people take those opportunities or when somebody on the enemy team forces something until he has the Blink Dagger. Then that's when he gets very active. So the moment that maybe picks up the Blink Dagger after going for the Desolator, he looks to get very active. You can see here in the mid lane you have this kind of situation here that's happening where it looks like the Radiant side is grouping up to take this mid tower, and Maybe's team, the Dire side, they're grouping up to defend the tower, and he's just kind of waiting in the wings. He's waiting for something to happen. He doesn't want to go in and commit before his team is here, because this is going to probably be a full 5-on-5. As you can see, Axe isn't here yet. He's walking there, even uses the blink to get forward, and the Shadow Shaman is pushing out bot, and he'll probably connect to the mid lane. So he's kind of just chilling here in the wings. Very typical for a TA player to just wait and scout to see a specific hero that you want to burst. Sand King blinks in on him, which starts the fight. He's able to blink out because he's spamming Refraction, which anytime you're waiting in the wings of a fight, you probably want to do that. Just have the Refraction active. He waits for the Axe to blink in. He sees a very viable target that he can go for. He doesn't try to go for the Bristleback and then cleave to the Sky. He does the opposite. He cleaves from the Sky, who has less armor, to the Bristleback. That's probably the most important thing about fighting on TA, is just identifying what targets you can go on in one hit. And then it's much easier to take a fight that's like 4v5 or 3v5 because you bursted a couple of heroes. So that way, when he goes in and he commits like this, and this counter initiation comes in, it's nowhere near as bad because he's already bursted the Skywrath Mage, right? So this Sky ulti is not going to come out and burst him, which allows him to survive. So if his target priority is incorrect in this fight, he's already dead. And now we have the situation arise, which is exactly what you want on a TA, where the enemy team is running away, you have an advantage. So that way, sure, it's all tanky heroes left alive, but who cares? They have 3 heroes, so they're dead. So this committal coming in from the Radiant side, it's going to result in nothing. And Axe gets a nice second call off, and we have a full 5-man wipe, essentially from maybe playing the early game really well, allowing him to farm, then the perfect fight happening where he has a good presence in a team fight, his positioning is good, takes a good fight, 5-man wipes them, and then immediately they go to Roche, take an Aegis, and push with it. So this is essentially the perfectly executed TA game. Not all pubs are going to go like this. This just happens to be the best TA player and a very good game for Maybe as well. So the rest of this game was kind of more of the same. Essentially, Maybe just blinked in, bursted the Lich and the Skywrath. The rest of the fight could not progress because the supports were dead. And as a result, Dire got this massive gold lead, which allowed them to siege, which ended the game. So I really think that the most important thing on TA is the farming patterns and trying to follow the same farming patterns in the same line of thinking that Maybe did, because as long as you can get to that blink and get to that deso in a reasonable time, the game essentially plays itself. You just need to do the exact same thing in every single team fight, and you play from ahead. This is not a great hero when it comes to playing from behind, but the great thing is I do genuinely believe, based on the win rate and based on what I've seen, that this meta favors TA. I think there aren't heroes that can really deal with her and stop her from farming. So as long as you are following the same sort of line of reasoning and line of farming that Maybe was following, I think that you will have some very good success with this hero in this patch, and maybe even in the next patch if she doesn't get nerfed.